So thanks a lot, Olga. It's a pleasure for me to show a little bit some simple use cases of ETH. So if you look at different tasks in FP&A, like planning, analysis, business steering, or what else, you'll find a lot of different AI tools that could support these tasks: predictive analytics, RPA, machine learning, and other tools. So the goal now is to show how what use cases we have looking at large language models, so how they could support us concerning different tasks in FP&A. You can go to the next slide. So the first example I show you goes into the direction of business steering and administration. So I suppose you also know that there are hundreds of guidelines, rules, regulations, instructions within your companies. And what we try to do is simplify access and handling of all these guidelines, and with that also optimizing business steering. So we use a large language model. You could do it by an open source model, or you take, for example, GPT-4, and you feed the model by, or we feed the model by all our internal data, internal rules, internal regulation. What's important, of course, is with that we keep all the information within the boundaries of the company. So it's not public. Not all the information is public information. And another important point is language models. They have the problem that sometimes you find hallucinations or false prognosis. So it would be good, and this is what we try, is always show and quote the reference document when giving some answers to questions, so that everybody could check the answers whether they are right or not. So this is an important point, looking at such large language models. At the end, we are not yet there, is optimizing the user interface. So looking now at the example on the next slide, what we have is just a prompt window, what you find also in Google search or somewhere else. But for example, if you look at the second example, if you ask the question, how much can I reimburse for dinner during a business trip, you get an answer for that. So imagine you are on a business trip and you don't know how much you can spend when you go for dinner. Then you just enter the questions and you get your answer. And here you see it's 27.5 Swiss francs, but, and you see in the answer, you have the possibility to spend a little bit more if the budget responsibility person accepts this. So there are some differences within these rules. Now, what's the strength of such a solution? You can imagine, what are you normally doing? You are normally going into the website of your company or to your internal documents. You look at the right document and you try to find the paragraph where you then have to read where is written how much I can spend for dinner. So a complicated process. Of course, if you know it by heart, then it's not any problem for you. But if you don't know it, you always have to search hundreds of documents to find the right answer. With that, people just could enter the questions and they get an answer. And furthermore, you can imagine you can introduce much more complex regulations. For example, you can introduce a rule that differs in every country. You just enter your questions and you get the answer, or you make dynamic rules. They could change from time to time, and it's not any problem because people just enter the questions and I got the answer. They not have to read again the document because they just enter their questions and they get an answer. So this is quite an easy way of steering through all the rules and regulations you can do. And on the next slide, this is what we have to integrate. It's just the user interface, where a manager, for example, has his main tasks that he sees. And when you press one of these tasks, you find, for example, the frequently asked questions of such a task. And then you could just click on the questions and you get the answer. You could normally, nowadays, you can also program such frequently asked questions side. But here, with an LLM model, you can do it in a dynamic way. So if you change the rules, the model if you push the answer, the model creates every time the new answer. So it's a dynamical way, and you don't have to reprogram it. So you can use it very dynamically, and of course, every people can enter its own questions if the questions is missing in the FAQ section. So this is just one way how we try to simplify administration work, and how we try to simplify or to optimize the steering within the company. The next example on the next slide here, it goes into analysis. So what we are building up is a graph. So this is just a database where you find some nodes. These are some objects that are related. You have interrelations, these are the edges, between the different objects. So in a university setting, as we have, so what we are interested in is our different questions about research topics. And so we program such a graph, and then we use a search engine. It's not Google, it's Elasticsearch. It's an open source where we can do the analysis. On the next slide, the goals of such an analysis is just we want to offer a simple way of making research about such questions. We want to have a single source, not having thousands of Excel sheets or lists. We want to reduce the time that is needed for making such searches, and we want to build up and use our own knowledge within the university of building up such models. On the next slide, our sister university in Lausanne, they already had placed this graph in place. You find it on the website. You can enter here some questions, for example, and if you go on the next page, if you enter the keyword artificial intelligence, you find a definition. You find all people that are making research in that field. You find papers that are published. You find also related contents like machine learning or deep learning and so on. And you find the courses that you can take for having educations within such a topic like artificial intelligence. Okay, this is just this is now in a university setting, if you're where we try to simplify our time to find out who is making research in what direction. But just imagine again a company, for example, a sales department that is spread all over the world. You have hundreds of customers, you have hundreds of contracts, you have hundreds of meetings with these customers. So for example, if you put something in place and you want to ask yourself, just taking a specific customer, you want to ask yourself the question, who has interrelations with that customer, which contracts do exist, what meetings are there, you could find them at one glance. So it simplifies the way of doing research within a company. So that's also another way of simplifying the analysis within our company. So these are two examples out of ETH. I thank you very much for your interest.